And did you resume your relationship when he returned?
Yes.
For how long?
Just until the summer.
When you were young, was there a group of, well, let me ask you, I should have asked you this too. Did you, I gather you got to know Suzanne McCarthy, his mother. Did you also get to know his father?
Slightly.
And why slightly?
I only had seen him on a couple of occasions, a couple of holidays.
So he didn't live at the East 2nd Street house?
He did not.
Were there a group of friends, sort of a core group of friends that you and the defendant hung out with when you were young, when you started your relationship?
Yes.
And who were the people, some of those people? Or who were those people?
There was Pat and Brendan Howard, John Katakakis.
Let me just stop and ask you to spell Katakakis for the court reporter.
Okay. Katikakakis.
Who else?
Michael Joyce, Joseph McCarthy, Tommy Russell, and give or take a couple of other people, but I can't remember.
And when the group of you hung out, that group of you hung out, where did that group typically hang out?
At 722 East 2nd Street.
722, he said that's the address of his mother's, his home address?
Yes.
And did you go out in the evenings, weekends, that kind of thing?
We did.
Was it mostly you and the defendant going out, or you and a group of people going out?
Always groups.
And were there more, when you say groups, was there a larger group that you sometimes went out with besides the ones you just named?
Oh, yes, yes. The people from all corners of the town would get together.
And was Michael Sprinsky one of that group?
He was.
Did he ever hang out at the defendant's home with the sort of smaller core group?
He did.
Is there a reason why you didn't mention him when you mentioned the initial list?
I don't know. I don't remember his face as much, but being there as much as the other boys.
When you went out with a larger group, sort of out of the house, where would you go?
We would go down to First Street, and off of First Street there were a couple of places that everyone would meet up on. There was a place called the Mills, and a place down by Clean Harbors called the Yellow Brick Road, and also down by the BAC, down
Boston
by
Athletic
the
Club?
Boston Athletic Club, yes, down right across from there, yes.
And did you say the Yellow Brick Road?
Yellow Brick Road, yes.
Did you ever spend any time in the vicinity of the Edison plant?
And the Edison as well.
Okay. And what sort of places were those?
They were out of the way, quiet, at dark at night, and just isolated areas.
And why did you pick isolated areas? I mean, it may sound like a stupid question, but why did you pick isolated areas?
Well, because we didn't want to be bothered by adults and just being loud and having fun as teens.
When you would have fun as teens, when you go out as a group, did you ever use either alcohol or other substances?
We did.
And what did you use alcohol?
Yes.
Did you? Where did you start in terms of substances that you would use?
I'm sorry?
Where did you start? Meaning, did you start with alcohol or somewhere else?
Start with alcohol?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, with alcohol.
And did you progress from alcohol to other substances?
Yes.
And what were those substances?
To opiates.
Did you use marijuana at all?
Yes.
And then to opiates, how did you first get involved with opiates?
They were around and they were available, so I took them.
How old were you when you first started taking opiates?
16, 17.
And what form did you, when you started taking them, what form did you take them in?
Orally.
So what does that, what type of substance was it?
Percocet.
And how did you get them?
Someone had them and they were given out, purchased.
And did you progress from Percocets or the sort of oral medication type opioids to anything else?
Oh, yes.
What was that?
Heroin.
And how old were you when you started using heroin?
18, 19.
How long did you continue using opiates, whether it's prescription medication or heroin?
For about almost 3 years, 2.5, 3 years.
And do you still use drugs at all?
Absolutely not.
How long have you been clean?
For a little over 12 years.
Are you also sober, or do you still use alcohol?
No, I don't drink. I'm sober.
And have you been clean and sober for the same 12 years?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a map. It's Exhibit 122. Publish this for the jury. And I need to zoom out. Ms. Devlin, have you seen this map before?
I have.
And do you see 722 East 2nd Street on this map?
Yes.
Could you circle it? You can use your finger, and if you push hard enough, it'll make a
Okay.
circle.
Oh, I actually put the circle right over the...
That's okay.
Okay.
As long as the record reflects you actually put the circle a little bit over the house. And you've indicated that there were 4 places that the group of you went to hang out. And I gather, I didn't ask you this specifically, but when you used alcohol or drugs, would that be sometimes at the places that you went to hang out as a group?
Yes.
You said that one of them was the road by the BAC, the Boston Athletic Club.
Yes.
Do you see that area on this map?
Yes.
Could you circle that with it? If you take your time, if you need to orient yourself on the map.
Yeah, let me just make 1 second here. I believe it would be, you want me to circle?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's probably around here.
And you described that as an out-of-the-way place?
Yeah. Yes.
You also said there was a place called the Mills. Do you see the area that you call the Mills on this diagram?
I'm sure I could find it.
Please.
Okay. Is there any way
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, no. Is there any way to, oh, this is Summer Street. I just needed to, Summer Street will help me navigate. Right around here.
Oh, hang on, I'm sorry. You know what I'm going to do? Let me zoom it back out for a minute.
Okay.
Because your marks, yes.
My marks.
And I'm actually going to try to capture her marks, Your Honor, so I apologize,
Okay.
but that
I can do that
process.
again.
So if you could circle 722 East 2nd Street.
Sure.
please. And then circle the area that you've referred to as the road by the BAC.
Okay.
And
In the mills.
I'm going to take a, I hope, print snapshot of that. Is that printed? Oh, it's okay. And then I'll be able to zoom it back in for you.
Do you need him to zoom it, or do you know where to
No, now I have a better idea.
Okay.
So I can.
So if you could show us where the mills are.
Okay.
And you've indicated an area that you called the Yellow Brick Road.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake on that.
Okay.
It's actually a block up.
No problem. So
Okay.
if you could circle the mills.
Sure.
And you've indicated an area that you called the Yellow Brick Road.
Yes. Yes.
Where's that?
That would be.
So you're circling an area a little to the first
A
circle
little
you
to the left
circled
of it.
was near the intersection of Summer Street and East First Street.
Yes.
And you circled another area a little to the left of that as you look at the diagram, is that right?
Yes.
And you indicated an area around, near the Edison plant. Can you indicate, first of all, if you could put an X on the Edison plant? And where is the area near the Edison plant that you would hang out?
Don't know.
I'm going to print that as well. And Your Honor, I'll show the printouts to the defense counsel, but and I'm going to ask that they be marked as the next sequential exhibit A and B.
I'm sorry, admitted as the next numbered exhibit?
Yes, next numbered exhibit A and B.
A and B related to this exhibit number 122?
No, I don't think that makes sense, Your Honor, because it's out of, it would make it, it's coming much later than 122. I think it should just be, I think it's, is it 141?
Okay, so when you said A and B...
I'm sorry, I would ask this to be 141A and 141B.
I see, I got it, okay. So those are admitted, the marked up versions of 122. And 141A is her first marking, is that right?
Yes. A indicates her first two marks, and B indicates her next four.
Okay.
How frequently did you go to each of these places? And first of all, was there a time of year that you were there more frequently than other times of year?
In the summertime, that's when it was easier to be out.
Did you ever go at other seasons besides the summertime?
Oh, yes, yes.
In the summertime, how frequently would you visit these places?
Almost every weekend, depending on which spot and who was going to be around. Do you know a term or terms by which the defendant referred to his father when you were going out with him? I'm sorry?
Do you know how the defendant referred to his father when you were going out with him?
Oh, Big D, D.
D or Big D?
Yes.
Did you, you said that you traveled with the McCarthy's, or you went to live with the McCarthy's in Oregon. Did you ever travel besides that with either the defendant or his mother?
We went to Maine once. Oh, I traveled with his mom as well.
Where's
She
your-
and I went to Las Vegas.
For what, was it for an occasion or just?
It was for my 21st birthday.
After you and the defendant broke up, did you ever see him after that?
Twice.
And what were those two occasions?
Saw him once, about 11 years ago. And then
Where was that?
It was around where my parents live.
Okay, in the Old Colony Project? Or did they live somewhere?
In Mary Ellen McCormick.
I'm sorry, Mary, you said that, Mary Ellen McCormick Projects?
Yes.
And was there a time more recently than 11 years ago?
And at his mother's wake.
And
Actually, and one other time, I apologize, was our friend Brian at his wake services.
And what's his last name?
Brian Cuneo.
Cuneo, how do you spell that?
Cunio.
Which of those was, when were his week services?
He was waked 4 years ago.
Before or after the defendant's mother's week?
Before.
Did you speak to, when you saw the defendant at the Mary Ellen McCormick Projects 11 years ago, did you speak to him?
No.
When you saw him at Brian Cuneo's wake, did you speak to him?
Yes.
And how long a conversation was that?
It was, how long did we conversate?
Yeah.
A while, probably like half hour.
And what was the tone of the conversation? And I'm not asking what you said, but just Was it?
I remember I was relaying to him how sorry I was that he lost a very close friend. They were very close, and then we would just gather memories and share.
So was it a pleasant conversation?
It was.
And did you speak to him at his mother's wake?
Yes.
For how long?
45 minutes.
And how would you describe the tone of that conversation?
Pleasant, and I was giving condolences and sharing memories.
Where, if you remember, was Brian Cuneo waked?
O'Brien's funeral home
And where's that?
in South Boston on Dorchester Street.
And where was the defendant's mother's wake?
The same. O'Brien's
Brian's
funeral home, Dorchester Street.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. I have no further questions.
Good afternoon, Ms. Devlin.
Good afternoon.
Now, Ms. Devlin, where do you live?
In South Boston,
Whereabouts?
in Mariel and McCormick.
And how long have you lived there?
Just recently, November, I had to move back in with my parents.
And before that, where did you live?
I lived on East 4th Street.
In South Boston?
I did.
And have you lived in South Boston all your life at different locations?
Yes, and a couple of apartments in Dorchester.
Are you employed?
Not at the moment.
Have you been employed?
Yes.
When was the last time you were employed?
About 2 years ago,
And what did you do?
I was an office manager at Unidyne Corporation.
At where?
Unidyne Corporation.
And where are they located?
They are located on Washington Street in Boston, right next to the old Boston Herald building.
And how long did you work there?
A little over a year.
And before that?
Before that, I worked for Walsh Brothers, construction project management.
And how long did you work there?
About almost 2 years.
And what did you do?
I was a field administrative assistant at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center.
No, I guess I asked you what you did at Walsh.
Oh, I was a field administrative assistant.
And then before that, you say you worked at Beth Israel?
No, it was the field office was at Beth Israel Medical
I see.
Center.
Okay.
Dana Farber.
Now, at some point, did an investigator want to talk to you about this case?
Yes.
And when was that? The first time?
I can't remember exactly when, but it was months ago.
Okay, months ago. And this was an investigator employed by the defense?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But in any case, you refused to talk.
Correct.
And you refused to provide any information.
Correct.
But recently, investigators from the prosecution came to talk to you, correct?
Yes.
And you had no problem talking with them, did you?
I had a problem.
But you did.
Eventually did, yes.
Well, when you say eventually, did you refuse at first?
Yes.
For how long did you refuse?
About 2 days.
Okay. And then they were able to get you to change your mind?
Yes.
And then you met with certain police officers on Wednesday, June 7th, correct?
Correct.
Was that the first time you met with the police officers, or had you met previously?
No, that was the first time.
So that was very recently. We're talking about June 7th of 2017.
Yes.
This trial was already ongoing.
Yes.
You've been following it in the papers.
No, not in the papers. I've seen it bits and pieces on the news.
You've been following it on TV.
Sure.
Now, the period of time that you told us about, was that beginning when you were 15 years old?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said you've testified about a period of time quite some time ago.
Yes.
And was that starting when you were 15 years old?
Yes.
So that's 21 years ago.
Right.
And was that the first time you had a relationship with Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
And so that's back in like 1996.
Correct.
And beginning at that time, you had a relationship for, what, about 6 years?
Yes.
And so the relationship with Mr. McCarthy ended in, say, 2001.
2001, yes. 2002. Sure.
So that's 16 years ago.
Yes.
And other than the couple of times you've seen him in between, you've had no relationship with him.
No.
Now, when you talked about a group of friends, Mr. Deacon asked you to describe them, and you described a number of friends, and then Mr. Deacon asked you about a particular person you had left out, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so you didn't mention Michael Sprinsky,
No.
although Michael Sprinsky was indeed one of Mr. McCarthy's oldest and closest friends,
That's right.
going all the way back to the first time you had had anything to do with Mr. McCarthy.
That's right.
And so, on all of the occasions that you referred to, where the group of friends got together at 722 East 2nd Street and at various other locations, Michael Sprinsky was there.
I don't recall.
Well, you don't recall who was there on any particular occasion, right? But there was a group of
Correct.
friends, and they tended to be together.
Yes.
So if Mr. McCarthy was familiar with any of these locations that you've described, Mr. Sprinsky was as well.
Yes.
Now, when you were asked by the police on the first occasion where you hung out, you told them that your usual hangout was called Yellow Brick Road.
At one point, yes, that's right.
Well, when you asked by the police where your usual hangout was, or you told them that your usual hangout was the Yellow Brick Road.
There were.
Did you or did you not?
Allow her to answer the question.
Sorry.
I think you have to let her answer the question. So yes, go ahead.
I understand what you're asking. I believe I answered that in regard to I needed to continue the answer with various hangouts. They varied from place to place, but that's not the one spot that we were
I'm going to put
hanging out.
on the screen a document. Can you see it?
I can.
Can you read it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to point out a place on this document and just ask you to read, beginning where I'm putting my pen, just read that sentence
Okay.
to yourself. To yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you read it?
I did.
So is it fair to say that when you were first talked to the police, you stated that your usual hangout was called Yellow Brick Road?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Sorry.
then you described where the Yellow Brick Road was, and you described it as being off of East 1st Street in South Boston.
Yes.
And you stated that if you were at the Boston Athletic Club and you looked toward the ocean, there was an area near the Boston Athletic Club where the trucks parked, and that was the Yellow Brick Road. Correct?
No, that is incorrect. That
You just,
I understand those words, and those words are actually, I feel like, a little bit misplaced.
okay, let me ask you this. I'm showing you a document. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
Okay, do you see the Boston Athletic Club on
Yes.
that document?
Yes.
Do you see the area which you referred to as the Yellow Brick Road?
Sorry, just need 1 second to bear. Yes.
Okay, circle that on this map.
That strip right there.
And then put that
Do you have
over.
to give visual delay to see it?
Okay.
So you're printing that out?
I am.
And
And
you're
then I'm
saying you
going
have
to-
it admitted,
Yes.
141C? Does that make sense? Mr. Deacon, are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I'm showing you, and I'm going to publish to the jury.
So yes, you can erase the green that she wrote since she
Yeah.
had it marked. Okay. Ms. Teitelbaum, you want to help him with that? Erase, okay. Yes.
Okay, now this is Exhibit 141C. Is that the area that you referred to as the yellow brick road?
Yes,
And you say that you were able to observe that from the area which is indicated as the Boston Athletic Club over here?
yes.
Was there also so again, now that it's on everybody's screen, this is the area that you referred to as the yellow brick road.
Yes,
And this is the area where you described at the Boston Athletic Club.
Objection, I think that mischaracterizes where she circled, Your Honor.
So that it's marked on the map, but you haven't asked her where she would put it, so.
Well, is that where the Boston Athletic Club is located?
I believe so.
Okay.
Where I circled or where the pin?
No, where the pin is.
Oh, yes, I believe so.
Okay. And was that an area where you used to hang out?
Yes.
Near the Boston Athletic Club?
Yes,
Okay, that wasn't one of the locations that you mentioned when Mr. Deacon asked you.
Objection.
Sustained.
States the evidence.
Where did you hang out near the Boston Athletic Club?
we hung out. There's a grassy area right across the street from, it's either a UPS or a FedEx building, and the BAC is right behind it. We hung out right along there.
Okay, would you indicate on this,
On 122, do you want to use a clean one?
no, I'm showing
Okay.
this, okay, can you circle the area on the, near the Boston Athletic Club where you used to hang out?
Sure. We were here and right here.
So you'd like that in the evidence section?
Yes, I
too?
would.
So we'll just keep the numbering, 141D, which is now the Boston Athletic Club location.
I'm publishing exhibit
141D.
And is this the area that you referred to near the Boston Athletic Club that you used to hang out at?
Yes,
And isn't that the area that you were referring to when you told the police, when you first met with them, that your usual hangout was called the Yellow Brick Road, and you indicated it was near the Boston Athletic Club?
no,
Now, the areas You mentioned this is Exhibit 141B. And these are the places you marked when you were shown the exhibit by Mr. Deacon, correct?
Yes,
And so this area here that I'm pointing to, is that the yellow brick road?
that is the mills.
Excuse me?
The mills?
That's the mills.
Yes.
This one is the mills?
Yes.
And what's this one?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. That's the mills, and the other is the yellow brick road. That's correct. You're right.
So
Sorry.
this one you say is the yellow brick road.
Yes.
This is the mills.
Yes.
And then this is the Edison plant.
That's the plant. Yes.
And this is, what is that called?
It was called the Eddy.
Now, back in the time frame that you went to these different locations, and we're talking now back in the late 90s,
Yes. Yes.
that area was considerably different than it is today, isn't it?
Very.
Have you been to these areas recently?
I've been to the playground around the area.
All right, so you've driven down East First Street.
Correct, yes.
Which is this street here,
Yes.
which runs all the way
All the ways.
down past all of those locations.
Yes.
Okay, and the area is very different now, isn't it?
Very, very different.
Back then, there was a lot more activity at the plant, wasn't there?
At the Edison plant?
At the Edison plant.
Activity meaning
Well-
within their work, within their factory?
Yeah.
I believe so.
Excuse me?
I believe so.
Yeah. And there was also a lot more security in the area in the terms of this area of the plant and the other locations were fenced off.
That's right.
And so to get to the area, there was no road, there was no access road, was there?
There was.
There was an access road, but it was a
fenced.
gated
Yes.
access road.
That's correct.
And in order for you guys to get in there, you'd have to go through a hole in the fence.
Exactly, that's what.
And the vehicle access part was controlled by employees of either the Edison plant or the T.
That's probably
Right.
correct.
So they would unlock these gates to let vehicles in or out.
I'm sure if that's how they've operated.
But you guys never went through the open gates.
I don't recall things, whether they were open or closed gate-wise. I remember the hole in the fence. That's about it.
That's how you got in.
Yes.
And that was true of basically the entrance to the area which you refer to as the eddy.
Yes.
This was gated where I'm pointing to, correct?
I don't remember whether or not it was gated.
Well, I thought you just told me that there was a fence along that street.
No, I didn't say there was a fence along the street.
Well,
Oh, I understand what you're saying. I apologize. I'm thinking of a different. Okay, I'm sorry. Repeat that.
So the area was fenced off, and you got in there by going through holes in the fence.
Yes, yes.
In order for a vehicle to get in there, gates would have to be unlocked so the
Yes.
vehicle could get in. And none of you guys had vehicles.
No.
Now, in addition to the employees for the various, that is the Edison plant or the T, was there a boat basin back there where there were boats that were used by fishermen and pleasure boaters?
Where I would go to?
Back in this area, particularly in this channel.
I have no idea.
Do you know whether there were fishing boats in the area?
In the area, I would have to say yes, but to my knowledge and to my recollection, I don't remember any boats.
Do you remember there being lobster traps in the area?
No.
Do you remember trailers relating to the T employees?
I do. I remember a trailer.
And there were employees for the T that used the trailer.
I'm not sure. I just remember a trailer.
Did you ever see people going and coming in that trailer?
No.
And when's the last time you can recall ever being in that area with Miss McCarthy?
Jeez. Probably when I was 19, 20, not even 20, probably 19.
Okay, so again, we're talking 19, well, let's see, do some quick subtraction here, 17 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so 2000.
Yes.
Do you know whether at the time, when you went through the hole in the fence, in order to get back to the area which you circled here, how you got there?
Walking.
Yeah, walking along what?
Walking on a concrete road, and then I believe it was a dirt path that it would turn into, and then
Okay.
rocks.
At some point, was there a fence on your left as you went in that direction?
I cannot remember whether or not there was a fence on the left.
You know, in other words, to get to the location you say you went to, did you have to go through more than one hole in the fence?
I believe, jeez, this is hard to recall. I'm trying to, I possibly, but maybe not like so noticeable because it might have been open or more. So I can't.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain that. Sorry.
Was the area when you got next to the water, if you got next to the water, was that fenced off?
The area, yes, there was a fence at the water.
Okay, so you couldn't get to the water
No.
because there was a fence there.
Yes.
And somewhere in that area where you circled, that's where you had parties?
Yes.
And you have no idea when that area changed.
I don't.
Okay. But in any case, somebody who was in your group back then thinking about that area, would have thought about the fences, correct? And remembering
With
it.
regard to what other people are thinking, that's a stand. I am hoping we can finish this witness within the 15 minutes, including the redirect. So.
Thank you, Mr. Devlin. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
I'll try to be very brief. Ms. Devlin,
Yes.
when the police officer spoke to you earlier this week, did he ask you to show him the places where you had hung out?
Yes.
And did he or you, did you suggest or did he suggest that it might be helpful to look at a map?
Yes.
Did he produce a map?
Yes.
And what did he produce it on?
His iPhone. Google Maps, I believe.
Where did he show you a map of?
Of around the First Street area.
And did he ask you to show you the areas where you had hung out?
Yes.
And when you showed him those areas, did you point out areas on the map?
I did.
And when you pointed out areas, did he do something to sort of record what areas you were pointing out?
I believe so. Yes.
How did he do that?
He wrote them down.
And did he take little snapshots on the phone?
I believe so.
Upward?
Yes.
So I'm going to show you now. Counsel, I'm going to put out your. I'm going to show you an image and ask you if you recognize this image. It's small, I know, but. I'll make it bigger.
Okay.
So maybe I can. Do you recognize that?
I don't. I mean, I
Can you
get
see,
what it is, but I
can you
don't.
see the Edison plant in that photo?
No, not from where I'm sitting. If you want me to look closer, but
Yeah, look as close as you can.
You can't make it bigger there, Mr. Deacon?
It didn't seem to work when I did that.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Oh, maybe I can. Hang on.
There's a, yeah, there we go.
Does that help?
Oh, yes, actually, no. Okay, yes.
What is that?
I believe the Edison.
Is that one of the areas that you pointed out on the map on the investigator's phone?
Yes.
So that's one of the areas you showed him where you hung out?
Yes.
Move that this be introduced as the next exhibit, Your Honor.
Okay, so we'll admit that. Should we mark that 142 to distinguish it, I think, from the others?
I think just next sequential exhibit might make sense.
Right, 142?
Yes, I think, are we up?
We had 141 A, B, G, A, B, C, D, so that's why I was asking. I think it's 142, is that right?
Yes. Nothing further.
Recross?
showing you 142, Exhibit 142.
Do you want to have everybody look at it?
Oh, I didn't publish it.
That's right, you didn't.
Is this the
We have it.
exhibit that you were just showing?
Yes, it's the same image that Mr. Deacon was just showing me.
Okay. And can you identify East First Street on this?
I believe right, like where it would say, where it says search for a place for address, it's probably behind that.
So, I mean, is East First Street on this
No.
photograph? No. Is the Boston Athletic Club on this photo?
No.
Is the Yellow Brick Road on the photo?
No.
And is the Mills on this photo?
No.
Is the Eddy on the photo?
Yes.
And where would that be?
Down. There's a little grassy area. Am I pointing or should I circle?
You can-
Yeah.
Is there a, okay.
Go ahead, circle.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Erase that dot, please. Somewhere around here.
That's the Eddy?
Yes.
Okay. Um, I move to introduce
No objection.
this as, I guess, 142A.
Okay, that makes sense.
This is the area that the witness identified as the Eddy. Thank you, I'm no further questions.
Just very brief, if I may. Did you point out several locations to the trooper who interviewed you
I did.
on his phone?
Yes.
In much the same way that you just, on the map, it identified several areas?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You can step down here, excuse me. Can I talk to counsel briefly? And I have been checking every day where we stand in this case, and we are way ahead of schedule in terms of the prediction. While we can't predict with certainty, we feel very confident the case is going to get to you next week, probably around the middle of the week is my conservative estimate. So that's our prediction. I do want to remind you again, before we excuse you, to not talk about this case. It gets very tempting the more you hear evidence, but there's good reason for that prohibition, since we don't want somebody to say something to you that could influence you. Again, refrain from reading or listening to any news reports, and don't do your own independent research, since we need you to base your verdict on what you hear in this courtroom. Try to be on time tomorrow. We may actually make it an earlier day than a full day. But if we start at 9, we'll be able to perhaps be able to make a decision on that and release you a little bit early. So we'll see you tomorrow to begin at 9 o'clock.
Court, all right, please. Here, you can step down for me, please. May be seated.
So I haven't made copies yet. I could, if you stuck around, I could leave, have you go home with some copies of these model instructions. general instructions I give in every criminal case with a few additions, instructions from the SJC's model instructions. Or if you don't want to hang out, we can give this to you tomorrow. It'll take about 15, 20 minutes for me to make the copies. Before I get off the bench to do that, are there any other issues that we need to discuss?
Well, yesterday, Mr. Deacon indicated he was going to request an involuntary manslaughter instruction. We don't think that there's any evidence in the record that would justify that. So we would object to giving an involuntary manslaughter.
Involuntary manslaughter. Okay, so I'm not going to, I'm going to give you, in giving you these instructions, I haven't definitively made any ruling on any of this. I have basically taken out the instructions about voluntary manslaughter. Doesn't sound like there's a disagreement about that. And the felony murder, I've taken those pages out. Obviously, there's an issue still as to the extreme atrocity and cruelty theory, and you're saying an argument about the involuntary manslaughter. But I think I'll just go ahead and give you everything with those exceptions I just noted, and that'll give us a little bit of a jump toward the instructions. And again, I'll try to make copies of this within the next 15 minutes if you want to stick around. Otherwise, they'll be available. Okay.
Okay.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Court, all rise, please. Court's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.